He never struck a ball like Messi, never had Ronaldo's muscles, and yet he conquered world football. José Mourinho isn't just a coach. He's a central character in the modern history of the game, a genius tactician to some, an arrogant provocateur to others. But above all, he's someone you simply can't ignore. In every club he passed through, be it London, Milan, Madrid, or Rome, he left his mark, not just with trophies, but with unforgettable moments that became part of football culture. Public feuds, wars with other managers, dressing room turmoil, and epic wins. Today, Mourinho is at the helm of Fenerbahçe in Turkey and looks set to turn the team into a new galacticos. At the same time, he's the most talked about name for a potential return to Manchester United. But is there still room for the special one in English football? Let's rewind the insane journey of this manager and maybe find clues in the past to what might come next. Imagine growing up in Setúbal, Portugal in the 1970s, and as a child, witnessing a trauma that would shape your view of football and life forever. José Mourinho's father was sacked on Christmas Day, a day that should have been about celebration, but turned into a nightmare. That wound stayed with him. Mourinho dreamed of becoming a professional player, but he couldn't make it. Failure was inevitable, and he had to swallow a bitter truth. His talent wasn't enough to shine on the pitch. At just 24 years old, far from giving up, Mourinho enrolled in a physical education degree and began understanding football from a different angle. And that's when his path crossed with what would become his true calling: coaching small clubs. Then came the plot twist. From coach, he became a translator, and in that role, Mourinho had direct contact with legendary managers and players, soaking up knowledge, building the foundation of the unique style he'd later impose on Europe's biggest clubs. Between 1992 and 2000, José Mourinho worked as a translator for none other than Bobby Robson, first at Sporting, then Porto, and eventually Barcelona. But he wasn't just there to pass on words. Mourinho was watching, learning every detail, slowly building a solid reputation behind the scenes of European football. And that respect even came from someone who would become one of the biggest names in football history, Pep Guardiola, who was a player at the time and saw Mourinho differently. After Bobby Robson, Mourinho stayed on under Louis van Gaal, eventually taking charge of Barcelona B. But life doesn't always follow the script. When the opportunity finally came to manage Barcelona's first team, Mourinho was rejected. But that no from Barca was the push he needed, and it was with a thirst for revenge that he returned to Portugal. He wanted and knew he deserved to lead a first team. His chance finally came, and even though his start at Benfica was rocky, he made it clear he was different. But it was at Little União de Leiria where Mourinho made headlines. With a modest squad, he pulled off surprising results and caught the attention of the big clubs. Porto, in crisis and far from its golden days, decided to take a chance on him, and that's when everything changed. Mourinho took over the club with a confidence that bordered on arrogance. He revamped the squad, instilled a new mentality, and turned ordinary players into warriors. The team gave everything on the pitch. They steamrolled opponents both in Portugal and across Europe. In just 2 seasons, he won it all: Portuguese League, Cup, Super Cup, UEFA Cup, and finally, the 2004 Champions League, a historic achievement with a team no one believed in. Along the way, he delivered a legendary moment. After knocking out Manchester United at Old Trafford, Mourinho sprinted down the touchline, arms wide open, in pure ecstasy, as if saying to the world, "I've arrived. The special one was born." After conquering Europe with Porto, Mourinho landed in London with sky-high confidence, and rightfully so. At his very first Chelsea press conference, he dropped the line that would define his entire career. "Please don't call me arrogant, but I'm European champion, and I think I'm a special one."
Please don't call me arrogant. European champion. I think I'm a special one.
From that moment on, English football would never be the same. Mourinho transformed Chelsea immediately. A club that had never won the Premier League in its modern format became a winning machine. An almost impenetrable defense, lightning-fast transitions, and a squad that fully bought into his vision. And with the success came the controversy. His rivalry with Arsenal boss Arsène Wenger turned into a full-blown war. The back-and-forth trash talk spilled from the microphones onto the pitch, until one tense match where Mourinho lost control and even shoved Wenger on the touchline. It was pure entertainment and pure pressure. Even so, the results spoke louder. Premier League titles, League Cups, points records, win records. Mourinho became emperor in London, feared by some, hated by others, but respected by all. But at the top, the political game gets even more dangerous, and his relationship with club owner Roman Abramovich began to fracture. Disagreements behind the scenes, battles over transfers, and conflicting visions of the future began to erode the trust between them. In 2007, despite a trophy-laden cabinet, Mourinho was sacked. Once again, he exited before his time. In 2008, he took over at Inter Milan, a Serie A powerhouse, dominant domestically, but doubted in Europe. A step backwards? For Mourinho, it was the perfect setup to make history again. He built a team with soul. They weren't the favorites, but they had something rare. Personality. Snyder pulling the strings in midfield. Lucio bringing fire in defense. Eto'o sacrificing ego to play as a fullback if needed. Mourinho turned every player into a battlefield soldier. And the biggest battle was yet to come. The Champions League semi-finals against Guardiola's mighty Barcelona, with Messi, Xavi, and Iniesta. At Camp Nou, with 10 men, Inter defended like their lives depended on it. At the final whistle, Mourinho sprinted toward the traveling Inter fans, arms wide open, celebrating like a general after war. Behind the scenes, he delivered one final jab. "Do you think this is over?" he said to Guardiola in the stadium tunnel. At that moment, revenge was complete. Days later came the peak. Victory in the final over Bayern Munich. Mourinho had achieved the legendary treble, Champions League, Serie A, and Coppa Italia, a feat that etched his name into European football's Olympus. But the revenge story wasn't finished just yet. After winning everything with Inter, Mourinho received the biggest challenge of his career, managing Real Madrid, right in the middle of Guardiola's golden era Barcelona. He accepted, but not to play second fiddle. He wanted war. And that's exactly what he got. In Madrid, Mourinho clashed with everyone. Guardiola, Messi, the Spanish press, referees, Iker Casillas, even his own players. But he also led Cristiano Ronaldo at his most destructive. He turned Real Madrid into an offensive powerhouse. He won La Liga with 100 points, shattered records, ended Barca's dominance, and brought fear back to the biggest rivalry in football. But the road was paved with scandals. He poked Tito Villanova in the eye on the touchline. He instructed players to deliberately get yellow cards to manipulate suspensions. He waited for a referee in the parking lot. Yet another surreal episode from his time in Madrid. Mourinho was more than a manager. He was a force of nature, a man willing to win at any cost, even if it meant self-destruction. And that's exactly what happened. Over time, he lost the dressing room. He collided with Casillas, parts of the squad, and the club itself. Even after ending Barcelona's reign, he was sacked in 2013. After the implosion in Madrid, Mourinho returned to the kingdom he once ruled, Chelsea. In 2013, the special one was back in the Premier League, and at first, it seemed like things would fall into place again. The following season, he won the Premier League in dominant fashion, a title that seemed to prove Mourinho was still at the top, even after all the wars. But something had changed. The next season was a disaster. The squad lost its spark, chaos ruled behind the scenes, and once again, Mourinho clashed with his own dressing room. He didn't last the full season, sacked once again by Chelsea. Still, the name Mourinho carried weight, and the next challenge came quickly. Manchester United, a giant of a club, but lost ever since Ferguson's retirement. Mourinho arrived with one mission: mission to restore pride to the Red Devils, and for a while, he managed to do just that. He won the Europa League, the League Cup, and delivered one of his most memorable press conferences after being criticized for his style of play. "I have won more Premier Leagues than the other 19 managers put together.
And I won more premierships alone than the other 19 managers together."
But the magic wasn't the same. His relationship with Paul Pogba became a public soap opera. His style was labeled outdated. The media attacked. The fan base split. In the end, Mourinho left in disappointment. Branded past his prime, the old special one no longer seemed to fit in modern football. After Manchester United, many said Mourinho was done, that he was outdated, no longer fit for the modern game, but he still had chapters left to write. In 2019, he took charge of Tottenham, aiming to bring the club a major trophy, and when he finally reached the League Cup final, he was sacked. Yes, fired before the final. One of the most inexplicable moments of his career. The man who lived for finals denied the biggest moment. Not long after, he accepted a new challenge, AS Roma, a traditional club, but far from the spotlight for years. And there, with a limited squad, Mourinho brought magic back. He won the UEFA Conference League, the first European trophy in Roma's history, and more. In the following season, he led them to the Europa League final, narrowly losing on penalties to Sevilla, but delivering a campaign worthy of respect. The fans went wild. Mourinho became a symbol of pride, passion, identity, and he immortalized that era with a rare gesture, a tattoo of the 3 European trophies he's won: Champions League, Europa League, and Conference. But as always, the backstage drama caught up. Mourinho clashed with the board, aired frustrations publicly, and was eventually sacked. He left in the middle of chaos, but he left to a standing ovation. In Rome, he wasn't just a manager, he became a legend. In 2024, at 61 years old, José Mourinho accepted yet another challenge, and as always, not the easy route. He took charge of Fenerbahçe, a regional giant with a passionate fan base, but far from the elite spotlight of European football. In his first season, the club spent over 60 million euros on signings, bringing in young talents like John Duran, a 20-year-old with explosive finishing, and fullback Archie Brown. Still, it wasn't enough to stop rivals Galatasaray, led by Osimhen, from taking the league title, a major shock for Fener fans who were used to winning. Mourinho, of course, couldn't stay out of the headlines. He publicly criticized Saint-Maximin from the rival side, proving his sharp tongue never went away. Off the pitch, the club made big sales, freeing up space to reinvest in Turkish prospects and major European signings for the next season. And there's more. Strong rumors suggest Mourinho is trying to bring in big names like Sergio Ramos, Lucas Vazquez, and even Neymar. There's no shortage of ambition or pressure. In the middle of all this, Mourinho's name continues to pop up in the headlines, especially as a possible return to Manchester United. Meanwhile, he keeps everyone guessing, proving that he still has the fire to lead anywhere in the world. But now I ask you, is there still room for the special one in English football? Can he build a Turkish version of the Galacticos and dominate Europe again? Or has Mourinho's time finally come to an end? Maybe football has changed, but as long as there's a war to be fought, Mourinho will always have a place on the pitch.